Hello music makers, welcome back. Last week we covered the sound of UK garage bass, but even good bass sound is nothing without the right bass line. So let's look at how to write some, shall we? Here I have 3 subtly different bass lines to show you, all using the same sound, but each applying a different writing principle. I'm not going to tell you what that difference is just yet because I want you to feel the difference. So tell me, which of these feels the most garagey to you? Here's number 1. Okay, and bass number 2. Bass number 3 is almost identical, except for one crucial difference. Okay, did you hear, or should I say feel, the differences? Let me know in the comments before I reveal what changed. Now, let's discuss. Okay, so you picked the last one, right? Number 3? Yes? Good. Well, to explain, here are the 3 pillars of UK garage bass writing, the way I see it anyway. Number 1 is bounce. Nothing bounces quite like a garage bass line, does it? Number 2 is part versus line. There's an important distinction between a bass part and a bass line. And number 3, density. Something other dance genres at faster tempos usually shy away from. Let's go through some examples. Okay, bounce. How do these lines bounce like that? Well, here's a clue. If you look at the notes I was making while I was referencing Sammy Virgie, Salute, Bush Baby, etc., this term comes up a lot. Swung AF. Yes, one of the staples of garage is swing, and lots of it. If you don't know what swing is, then let me give you a quick explanation. Basically, swing is when every other note is moved back in time. It's also sometimes called shuffle. It's displayed as a percentage from 50% to 100%. We don't have to do them manually though. In Ableton, we can select them down here. We have different groove types and percentage amounts. FL Studio does this a slightly different way. You have your global swing amount at the top of your channel rack here, and each individual part can opt in or out by an amount on the swing dial here. So Peach is a good example. The bass part has lots of syncopated notes. Those are the in-between notes, the ones which are affected by the amount of swing. Now, by default, Ableton doesn't show us visually the amount of swing on the MIDI. It's just going on in the background when you select a groove over here. As you can see, we're at 66%. But if we press this button, it will apply it directly to the MIDI, and we'll be able to see exactly what's going on. See all these shifted notes? Now, I know what you're thinking. What does Peach sound like? Not swung. Straight. Let's have a listen. Is that even garage now? Straight Peach is weird. Back to swung. All is right with the world again. So swing. Hopefully you can hear the amount of bounce that's contributing. Okay, so what do I mean by bass part versus bass line? I'm going to use Peach again as the best example. Peach only has 2 chords in this section, and if I just use a respace to play those root notes, this would be a perfectly functional bass part. Just following the root notes of the chord, providing that support, the lowest note, keeping the low end solid. Whereas a bass line it still has some notes of support. For example, these are the root notes of the chord. But look at everything else going on here. These fills, these flourishes, if you will. This is a bass line. It's the focus. It's basically the melody. It's the hook. Because if we listen to the pad, forgive my little free choir recreation here, not as good as the original, but that's just all long notes being held. Whereas all the interest is down here. This is front and center, a bass lead, if you will. In terms of how these are written, like I say, they're still based on root notes of the chord, but we have all these passing notes in between those roots, like fills. Very funky. Not too dissimilar to disco. Something I talked about a lot in my Piano House Basslines video. Lots of octaves, like these. More octaves. These are what I would call passing notes. Basically just running up some notes of the scale to bridge the gap between our root notes, our main roots here. That's why I class this one as a fill. These are passing notes. This would be a fill or a flourish. In terms of picking notes, these are just notes from the chord, by the way. This is the C chord, C, E, G. So you can see how these fill notes were chosen. G. There's an E here, there's a slight variation to this one, also in the chord. And the same over here. This is the G sharp, which is in F minor, because this chord is F minor here. So no great mysteries there, just picking higher octaves or notes from the chord. And like I say, these ones are passing notes. So this is just a bridge up and down between important notes. They could almost be anything in scale, really. It could be this, it could be these three instead. Whatever sounds good. It's just a melodic bridge between the root notes. Coupled with the amount of swing, we've got ourselves a bass line. So this is functional, a bass part, but this is a bass line. Let me give you one more example. Let's look at the All Right bass line from Sammy Virgi. So what's going on here? Not too different. Here's our root notes. If you saw my garage chord video, I talked about the 6-5-1. This is our 6-5-1 in G minor, harmonic minor to be precise. And look what we have here. Lots of octaves, even more octaves in this case. Lots of those, and lots of fifths. These are all the fifths of their respective chords. Here's another. Let me draw the chord for you. That's G minor there. So you can see where all these flourish or fill notes come from. G, D, G. Basically all octaves and fifths. Lots of swing, obviously. Now here's an example of a functional bass line. Perfectly functional. We're just supporting the root notes. Little bit of groove matching the upper keys part and probably the vocal too, but that's a bass part, not a bass line. This is a bass line. Lots of fills, flourishes and funk. In fact, there's your summary. Garage bass lines are fills, flourishes and funk. Oh yes, and swung AF. Okay, density. In last month's Garage Bass Sound video, I talked about how the bass in Peach was essentially a house saw bass, with the garage bit being how the line was written. I also talked about how the bass in Foundation was made up of very similar elements to James Hype's More Than Friends bass. So I'm thinking, what better experiment to show the fundamental difference between house and garage bass than taking the More Than Friends bass, but rewriting it as if it was a garage bass line. Well, that's the theory anyway. Let's give it a go. Okay, here's the More Than Friends bass. If you want the sound, all sounds are in their respective video descriptions, by the way. I also brought in the piano. Might use that later. Here's our garage loop. So, first things first, swing. At least 66% should do the job. Remember, swung AF. Let's have a listen. Good, good. It's starting to bounce already. So what do I mean by density? Essentially busyness. All those flourishes and fills I was talking about. Most high-tempo dance genres simplify their bass parts, but not garage. We need to turn this into the focus. Yes, James's original bass is a hook of sorts, but it's not as melodic and playful as the garage stuff. So let's start with some octaves. Maybe some here, like this. I think we need to fill this gap. Let's do that again. Okay, I'm hearing an octave swap here. Something like that. Another one here, maybe? I'm feeling this last one needs to bounce up. Yes, that's close. Now, to complete the effect, I know this is in the realms of sound design, like last week, but seeing as it's so easy, we can easily morph this sound into a more garagey sound by simply slowing the attack of this envelope. Let's put the 808 on the sub. Good stuff. There's More Than Friends in an alternate garage universe. Let's try the Dagger Dash sound, actually, while we're here. There we go. Now, don't forget, links to all the sounds will be in the description. I hope you learned something, and until next week, I'll see you in the comments. Bye-bye.